which if you're doing the green assignment in Schoology, it's different practically every time you take it. So your odds of seeing this one are about like 1 in 10. But you will have a similar one on your final. So we have write an exponential function represented by the graph or table. Looks like we have a table right now. What's your general setup for exponential functions? Like, what's the general formula we use for that? ABX, okay, to the power of, say it all together correctly. Exponential functions, what's the formula for it? Is that what we said? Did I hear you guys right? Okay. Sorry, I can't hear when you don't say anything or when it's like really low. So, what does the A stand for? Can you say it louder, please? A stands for what? Now, from a table, it's not necessarily always going to be the first value that they put there. Um, where would I see it if it was like on a graph? Where would I look for my initial amount on a graph? Okay, so let's attach that definition. And by definition, your y-intercept is when what happens? So that definition helps for a table because then whatever table they give you, no matter if they start at 0 or not, you know you have to look for where the x is 0 and that y value will be your y-intercept or your initial amount. So, and then of course it's set up like this where x is the exponent. It should not be on the -7, okay? Because that's my initial amount. So I can automatically eliminate that one. Same with this one. A is not attached to the x exponent. This one also doesn't look right because of that. So just from that alone, I'm already eliminating to find my final answer. But otherwise, what would B stand for in exponential functions? Our B is the common factor. And what do we do with factors? What do we do with factors? We multiply them. So common factor, like break down the vocabulary, it's what you're multiplying by, and it's like the common factor, so you're multiplying by the same number each time. Not in the x's, because the x's are just independent. Like this is basically saying, like this is my starting value, this is after 1, 2, 3 of the same pattern. You should see the pattern in the y's, in the outputs. So what times -7 is -14? And then see if that continues throughout. Is -14 times 28, or sorry, -14 times 2, is that -28? And if I keep multiplying, -28 times 2, is that -56? That is what needs to be attached to the x, the exponent in exponential functions. All right, so there's that. If it's hard for you to see what the common factor is, like I know in the decay functions especially, it's hard. It's always like take a number and divide it by its previous number, at least again in the y's. So like -14 divided by -7 is 2. If I took -56 divided by -28, also 2, right? So that's my common factor. Questions on that one? Questions on others? on the Schoology one. So the number 8 that she's talking about, a carpenter is putting a skylight in a roof if the roof measures this expression by this expression, and the skylight measures this expression by this expression. What is the area of the remaining roof after the skylight is built? And put your answer in factored form. So we have, if it's just giving us this by this, we're kind of like saying that this is the length and this is the width of the roof. So imagine like, well, let's assume it's rectangular since they only gave us 2 dimensions. 5x plus 8 would be like your length, 4x plus 2 for the width, and they're putting a skylight inside it. So it shouldn't take up the whole roof. They're saying that measures 3x plus 4 and 2x plus 7 for the other dimension. And we want the remaining area. So what I really need to find is the area of the big one, the area of the small one, and subtract it to get what remains. So basically I'm finding like this piece that I'm putting in red. Okay, so what I'd have to do first is multiply my first expression by the second one for the big rectangle. And you could FOIL, you could area model, whatever you want to call it. What's 5x times 4x? 5x times 2. So now inner terms, 8 times 4x. And last terms, 8 times 2 is, and then combine like terms in the middle. I get this for my bigger area. From that, I'll need to subtract what I get from multiplying this out. So 3x plus 4 times 2x plus 7 is how you get the area of the smaller rectangle. 3x times 2x is outer terms, 3x times 7 is inner terms, 4 times 2x is, and my last terms, 4 times 7 is, and again, combine like terms, I get 29x in the middle. But we're not done there. We have to now subtract them and then put it in factor form. So kind of a lot of work, but there are some shortcuts we could take, but the calculator cannot multiply the x's for you. So they also can't combine like terms for you. So from this, and normally I'd put it all in one line, but since they are both trinomials, I'm going to do it this way. From this, we're subtracting negative 6x squared. And then it really distributes to this whole thing if we're subtracting it. It would change all the signs that are inside, just so you know. But right now I'm writing it as one big subtraction problem. You need to make sure you subtract each. What's 20 minus 6? 14x squared. And then 42 minus 29. And while some of you might be looking at this and wondering why I didn't add them, it's because we had to subtract it. So it's 42 minus 29. Over here, 16 minus 28 is what? Negative 12. And then instead of factoring it by hand, what I will do is type in all my answers and see which one would overlap the graph of this other one. But there was no way to like use graphing for the rest of it, just so you know. It would have to be me doing all of that work, finding what I wrote in the blue and comparing it to my answers. So 14x squared plus 13x minus 12. Okay. And then typing in my answers. So the one that is correct, I'm going to type in and I'm going to show you how it overlaps the graph. So 2x plus 3 times 7x minus 4. Right? If they're equivalent, then they will overlap each other. So that's why, like, if you just stop at this part, you don't technically have to factor it because that would take a lot of steps as well. You could now type in your multiple choice answers and find it. If I put the answer that you put, the 2x minus 3, 7x plus 4, it's like close, but it's not overlapping it. And then I'm sure the other ones don't cover it either. So like 2x minus 4 squared. Right, I don't even see it close. But yeah. So keep in mind, like this one kind of takes a lot of time. And it wasn't like too long though. Like it was pretty manageable. I still probably did it in just under a couple minutes. If you're doing like a 20 question test in 60 minutes, that is like 3 minutes per question. So if you read a question and you're like, hey, that one sounds difficult, skip it and go back to it later. Like use all those testing strategies we talked about on ACT Aspire. Um, because you do have to finish, like it's the end of the year, like you have to finish it, and guessing would be better than leaving it blank. So do all the ones you know how to do first, and then go back and do these other ones that might be more time consuming. All right, other questions on the Schoology one? Okay, hold on. So this one, which again, if you pull it up on the Schoology one, you have a 1 out of 10 chance of seeing this exact one. So it says solve by completing the square. I will say, like, we wouldn't know if you truly completed the square or not. All right, so whatever way you think is easier, completing the square requires you knowing like 4 steps that are oddly specific. You could write those 4 steps on your note card, but also you are provided this formula too, which I think some of you tend to like better, or you at least know how to type it in the calculator. That one might be better for you. However, looking at these answers, you might just have to like match up the decimal, whatever it is, however you do it. But anyway, completing the square, if I did that method, I would first have to rewrite it into where C is on the other side. So if I'm doing this method, I'd rewrite it like this. How would I move this -1? So we're going to add 1 on both sides. That would make this x squared plus 4x equals 1. What's step 2 of completing the square? Half of b, squaring it, and then what do you do with it? Okay, good. So what is my b value on this? What is half of 4? What is 2 squared? 2 squared. Okay. So we took half of b, we squared it, now we're going to add it to both sides. So this is me adding it to both sides. I get x squared plus 4x plus 4. On the right side, this is usually where people make mistakes. They forget to do this part. 1 plus 4 is 5. What is step 3 for completing the square? Factor. So on the left side, you should have now a perfect square trinomial. Um, I'm looking for what multiplies to 4 and adds to 4. But also, remember, like when we did that lesson, if I know it's supposed to make a perfect square and it should be the same number here and here, it should really just be whatever half of b was. What's half of 4? Doesn't this multiply to 4? Doesn't this add to 4? So then it ends up looking like this. Because it's a perfect square, I can write it in the condensed form. And the last step is to do what? Yes, I'm gonna condense that step to isolate x, because I know like I have to undo what's being done when I do that. Open your eyes, please. Opposite of squaring is, so that's what we do. On the left, it becomes x plus 2. On the right, it's just plus or minus the square root of 5, because technically you use that plus or minus anytime you're square rooting. And then I have, instead of adding 2, what do I do? Subtract 2. And then the answer option that matches that is C. Because you can switch the order, but you have to keep the sign that's in front of each term. So it definitely is a -2, and that plus or minus needs to go in front of the square root, not in front of 2. But if you did quadratic formula, it probably wouldn't look like this when you're reducing. So that's where you have to like type it in, look at your decimal, type in your answers, see which one gives you the same decimal. That's the other way. Questions on others? Yes. This question. Okay. Is it one that you submitted? Okay. So there's a couple easy ways that you could identify whether it's growth or decay. And then it also says identify the percent rate of change. I'm going to tell you two ways. So one is that if the B value is greater than 1, then it's growth. The B value should always be greater than 0, but basically if it's smaller than 1 or like between 0 and 1, then it's decay. 3/2, what decimal is that? What's 3/2 as a decimal? 3 divided by 2. 1.5. That's greater than 1, right? So I know it's hard to like identify fractions. Some people have the misconception that fractions are always decay, but you can have fractions that are greater than 1, like if the numerator is bigger than the denominator. So anything that says decay, I'm going to eliminate just off of that. Now it's a 50-50 chance. I feel like this might be a mistake then, because if that's my B value, then they added, because remember B can also be 1 plus or minus R. They added 0.5 to it, so that would be 50%. Let me just make sure and ask my person who made this if that's a mistake. But like I'm kind of leaning with you on that. It should have been, oh wait, no, it does have the right answer marked. Yeah, it should be D. For some reason, I thought it marked the wrong answer right, but no, this is right. That's what should have been picked. Because if it's 1.5 for the B value, they would have had to add 0.5, and that is your rate as a decimal. To convert it back to a percent, you have to times it by 100%, and that gives you your growth rate of 50%. Okay. So yeah, remember the other way to write exponential functions that we haven't talked about yet today is this way. Instead of the B, they put that for the percent. All right. Any other questions? Going once, going twice. Okay, if you think of any other ones, let me know, but like I can't stress this enough. If you like the final semester letter grade that you see, and it has to be the one that says final semester grade, like don't look at the wrong thing. If you like that letter, all you have to get tomorrow is a 25%. If you don't like that letter, I would rather you do IXL to get that up versus hope that you'll get like extremely better on the final. I'd rather you just do it tonight. It'll help you prepare for the final as well, to do the IXL skills instead of just hope and pray that tomorrow's goes really great for you. Bailey. Okay, give me. Okay, so average rate of change. A really good formula to put on your note card. What's the formula for average rate of change? That slope intercept form. The mouse formula for average rate of change. Okay, and usually I switch the twos and ones, but it really doesn't matter. So long as you're picking numbers from the same coordinate, like like this and setting it up in a fashion like that, then you should be good. But you need coordinates in order to plug into this formula. So what they give us is something in function notation. And they're telling us, they always tell you where you need to calculate the average rate of change between. What you would do for this one is plug in the x's. So we're finding from between when x is 3 and x is 7. Plug in into the given equation. Simplify whatever that value gives you is your y value for that coordinate. So like my x was 3, my y I'm going to figure out right now, and please use a calculator for that. I don't want to have to switch back and forth, so I'll just do it by hand. 3 squared is 9. 8 times 3 is 24. 24 plus 9 is 33. Okay, so that would be like, for example, my x1, y1. My other value I get from plugging in 7. So they always tell you what they want you to plug in. So 7 squared plus 8 times 7, that's me plugging it into here. And 7 squared is 49, 8 times 7 is 56. Add those together. Let's see if I can do the mental math. 105, I think. Yep. And that makes a coordinate 7 and 105. And we can make that one x2, y2. So then all that work to now plug it into this formula. All right, so if I labeled it like this, then I'd be doing 33 minus 105. That's my y1 minus y2 over 3 minus 7. So you should see the numbers from the same coordinate on top of each other. And it is like rise over run. So it has to be y's over x's. And then do the math. 3 minus 7 is -4. On the numerator, it is something I need to calculate. And then divide that, and it should match one of them. And like a negative divided by a negative will make a positive. So negative 72 divided by negative 4 is a positive 18. All right. If you have any other questions, I mean, you gotta ask before you test. So like email me tonight and I'll try to get back to you. But you have the reviews. It does look just like the final. I also told you what to do if you don't like your letter grade right now. But you have to get at least a 25% to keep the letter grade you see.